Hello and welcome back to the Carlton Blue Podcast Q&A. This episode is sponsored by NordVPN, and if you want the best discount code available, you can find the link in the description. I'm Dan Rolinson, joined by John Townley to answer all your Aston Villa questions ahead of a big week for Villa, Bayern Munich and Man United to come. But first, John, Portman Road, how was it?
Yeah, I enjoyed Portman Road. I was just mentioning off air that because it's obviously a newly promoted team and their stadium, I presume a couple of years ago when they were in League One, wasn't quite fit for Premier League purpose. So they have to update their media facilities and stuff. So from a professional point of view, yeah, really good. Lots of new things. But then as a stadium itself, I really liked it. It reminded me a little bit of Goodison.
Yeah, old school.
Yeah. But also, I think it holds... How much does it hold? Is it 30,000? Or am I overestimating that potentially?
I'd say late 20s.
Yeah, 30,000, 29,600. So, yeah, maybe a bit bigger than I expected as well. I always like a stadium when it has two-tier stands. It makes it feel like, okay, if you have to walk upstairs to get to the do you know what I mean? I like that. No disrespect to Leicester and Southampton, but I don't like their stadiums because if you can walk from the bottom to the top, I don't like that. I feel like you need to, you know what I mean? Which Portman Road has. They have the two tiers. So, yeah, that ticked a box for me. And the atmosphere was really good. At the end of the game, when they kept winning corners, they had 10 corners. We didn't have any in the match. They were celebrating each corner like it was a goal, genuinely. So, really, really good atmosphere. And I expect them to be taking lots of points at Portman Road, and they'll be turning over, maybe not turning over, but they'll be taking points off of the, shall I say, top six contenders this season as well.
Well, get your thoughts on the game as we go. Let's get straight into the questions. First of all, from James, who says, I know it's early in the season, but why do we appear to have 2022 Leon Bailey back? 2023 Bailey feels like a distant memory at the moment.
I think that's a bit harsh right now. I get what James is saying. Bailey hasn't quite hit the heights of last season, and I think there's possibly a few reasons for that, and we can give them. Diaby not being a competitor for his position, and as well when Diaby played, I do feel like that helped Bailey as well, because that's two similar players to occupy if you're a defender from the opposition team. So I think that probably plays against Bailey for a start, and kind of the more cynical kind of outlook would be, he's got his new contract, because that was always a thing. Once a player gets the contract, what do they do then? But that is being cynical. I don't think that's an issue. What I would put this down to is just it's the start of the season, and he's obviously had a bit of an injury.
Got an assist yesterday.
Yes, but I think we're looking at his overall game, and apart from that, I don't think I say apart from that, I don't want to sound negative, and I've said before in the last couple of weeks, Bailey's undroppable for me. I think no one else in the team can do what he can. He's one of the best wings in the Premier League. So there's no doubts or worries for me. But I do agree with the sentiment that he's kind of been off the boil a little bit. But I don't doubt that he'll be able to kind of get back into the groove quickly. I just think under Emery, he's found the manager that he needed to take that step up in his career. We heard a couple of seasons ago, when Emery was wanting more from him, and then at the start of last season when he was subbed on against Liverpool but then subbed back off, that was kind of like a switch moment for him of, okay, I need to book my ideas up here, and he did, and has been one of our key players since then. He is regarded by Villa as one of the kind of the key 4 or 5 players that they didn't want to sell as well in the summer window. So yeah, no doubts at all, but I understand the question. I understand there's kind of a little bit of, I don't want to say criticism, but there's kind of a doubt over, is he where he was last season? I think we'll get that as the weeks go on. And yeah, he got an assist as well. So I think that was his first contribution of the season. I don't want to sound negative here, but if that felt really easy from a perspective of when the goal was scored, it always felt like the Villa fans were like, oh, okay, we scored. Look, because Ipswich just didn't defend it. Bailey puts the ball in the box and Watkins heads it to the side of the goal. It was that easy. There was really no, I don't know. It was as if Ipswich defenders weren't there. And obviously our first goal as well, they kind of put it on a plate for us too. And I know we had a bit more to do than just Rodgers scoring. He had to combine with Watkins, but it felt like we could have really taken the game to them, but we didn't quite do it. And that isn't just Bailey's fault, by the way. It's I think Ramsey at the moment is playing without conviction in his game. I think he had a chance to put us back in the lead. Yeah, he did. And then before that as well, we had an opportunity to play the ball across the box, I think, to Rodgers, but even that felt like he was in two minds. So I think between Bailey and Ramsey, maybe there's a bit of a lack of confidence coming from what I'm not sure. But as I say, I think as the weeks go on, I have no doubts that these quality players just need a bit more from them. But they'll know that themselves. So so will Unai, and he'll have no doubts over them as well. So I'm okay with it.
Okay, right. Next question from Ula, who said, looking at the table, we sit 5th with 13 points after 6 games. That seems great. However, is it as good as we make it out to be, considering we've played teams currently placed 3rd, 14th, 15th, 16th, 17th, and 20th? Still got to beat them, though, is 1 point, I'd say.
Yeah, I mentioned this in my little post-match video after the game outside Portman Road, and this was my feeling coming into the game against Ipswich as well. It was, we've played a few of the... don't say the worst teams in the division, that's harsh. Some of the more beatable opposition in the league we've played so far. But what I would also say is that because it's so early in the campaign, if they were to have got a result against us, they'd have shot up to like mid-table. So I think it's difficult to kind of look at the standings yet. But I take the point of those teams have had a difficult start. But I'd also look at the fixture lists of West Ham and say, I don't think they would have picked up too many more points, to be honest. Wolves as well, although Gary O'Neill probably isn't right to say they're second favourites as the manager of the club. He's not wrong. And there's other teams as well who have had tricky games. And we've obviously played Arsenal at home as well, one of the title favourites. So I'm not too kind of concerned that, we've only played the poorer teams and that now it's going to get harder. That is true, but we've proven over the course of a huge sample size that we're the 4th best team in the division. So I'm kind of relishing going to Chelsea in a few weeks and playing Liverpool and Tottenham. I don't mind that, because although I don't think we're quite ready to kind of commit to being that 4th best team right now, because we'll get on to our defensive issues, it's a good kind of yardstick to see where we are, because I don't want to kind of keep going on about, if we beat Man United, but they're rubbish and Ten Hag might get sacked. Or then if we beat Bournemouth, but they haven't started well either. Ultimately, there's going to have to be a point where you just give us credit for winning a football match. But I understand the question, because we've come back from losing positions in those games as well, which says a lot about those teams as much as it does about us. For example, Wolves, they lost to Newcastle late on, having been leading the game. They did it again against us. Everton obviously blew a lead against Bournemouth, and they did it against us as well. So it's like, yes, credit to Villa, but also we are playing teams who are fragile, or we have been playing teams who are fragile. Ipswich, they're a bit different. I think they are now unbeaten in 4 games, which for a newly promoted team is very good. Brighton and Fulham in that run as well as us. So they're no mugs. I don't think Ipswich. I think though they could be okay this season.
Agreed, yeah.
Because they've got quite a lot of quality at Portman Road. They're going to be strong as well. So, yeah, start of the season, we've had a more winnable run than other teams, put it that way. But I'm not going to kind of look too much into it. I'm happy to be playing, as I say, Spurs and Liverpool after the break. Fulham away will be a really tough match as well. We'll start to see what we're really made of then. And that's why I don't take anything into account until 15 to 19 games in the season, because that's when you start to have actually played every team.
Yeah, I still think it's worth saying that you still got to beat what's in front of you, and Villa could have played an easy run of fixtures and not be on, 13 points? We could be on 7 and we'd be going, this is bad. We've played easy games and we still can't win. And I think there's still an element with Villa where when we play the better sides, the bigger sides, we up our game a little bit. I still find there's a bit of complacency with Villa when we play teams that we should be beating. Kind of a cockiness or an arrogance comes in where we take our foot off the gas a little bit, like we saw at Ipswich, where we've kind of got this in the bag until we haven't.
Yeah, I agree with that, and it's all kind of up in the air at the moment about, as you say, Dan. Last season we proved that we could take the game to an Arsenal, Man City. We beat Arsenal twice, beat City at home, we beat Chelsea away, we beat Spurs away. However, if you're asking me right now, do you think he'll replicate those results? That's going to be difficult because of the kind of defensive frailties we're seeing at the moment, and then we'll get on to it. But I think that's the kind of the reason for that line of questioning. I forget the name of who asked the question now.
Ula was that one.
Ula. But the kind of negativity that's with the start of the season is because of the defensive side. We're just about doing the job against those teams who are considered a lot worse than us, essentially. And every Premier League game is going to be tough. But I don't think you'd see let's say the top three of last season. I don't think they'd be struggling against those teams as much as we had been, which, Liverpool lost at home to Forest, but I just think we want to be that team who kind of wipe those teams away. And there's no doubts. And we're going into Fulham after the break and Man United and Tottenham, Liverpool thinking, yeah, let's have them. But instead, I think a proportion of the fan base are probably thinking, oh, we could get done against them because of Carlos, because of this, because of that, and because of the form that we're showing in that defensive phase. So, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Well, we've kind of alluded to it a few times that we're going to be speaking about the defensive structure. There's about, I don't know, I think we're doing 10 or 11 questions and probably 8 of those are all about the defence. So some of these I might ask a question and feel like we've already answered that. So let's start with the Dr. Mills, who says, since January, we've conceded 70 goals. Why has Emery done nothing to address this? No signings in those positions that we desperately need. There's also, I've not got a question specifically, but I saw a lot of stuff about why did we sign Ian Maatsen? We didn't need a left back. We needed a right back. Do you want to answer that as well?
Yeah, so firstly, I'm not too sure if 70 goals since January is correct. Maybe that's been kind of lost somewhere. We've conceded about 70 goals, or maybe even bang on 70 goals since the start of last season.
It was 60 odd, wasn't it, last season? And we've conceded about 10 so far this season. So I think the question is wrong. I think it's since the start of last season, it's 70 rather than since January. When I first read it, I thought since January, 70 goals seems like a hell of a lot.
Yeah, well, I got the numbers. So my rough calculation is this only doing it once is 56 goals conceded this calendar year, essentially. So still a lot of goals, which is, I mean, we've played 34 games in all competitions. Again, if my calculation, I'm going to do a big piece on this actually, hopefully today. Basically just breaking down goals conceded this calendar year to last calendar year, because that's obviously two big sample sizes. We've played 34 games in all competitions since the start of this year, conceded 56 goals, which is about 1.6 goals conceded a game, which obviously means you're going to have to score at least 2 to win on average. The first 34 games of last year, we kept 13 clean sheets in 34 games. This year it's 9, which doesn't sound like a big disparity, really. But the amount of goals that we're conceding is worrying compared to the last calendar year. I don't know if you remember, Dan, that run that we went on. I think it was in like a March period when we were, Emery had obviously been in charge for a few months then. It was kind of after we lost to Leicester, Arsenal, and Man City. And then we kept like 6 clean sheets in 9 games or something stupid. We'd be like Chelsea away, Newcastle, that run. So that is a big factor in this one as well. But it shows that we can keep clean sheets, or at least we did. But now we are really struggling. So Villa have conceded 56 goals in 34 games this year, compared to 35 goals conceded in 34 games last year. So again, the first 34. So the first 34 games of last year, we conceded 35 goals, which is obviously very good. That's literally 1 more goal than we played games. But then compared to this year, obviously that's 21 more goals, which is a dramatic increase, which is obviously not very good. When this piece goes out, read it instead of listen to me talk about it. There's a lot.
When there's only numbers, it's a much easier thing to read than listen. So if you've written that piece by the time this story comes out, or tomorrow, whatever, I'll update the description to drop it in there. Can you look at our goals scored during that time as well? We scored more goals in that window.
I mean, we must have scored more goals because we've conceded more and we've maintained 4th. So I don't have that number to hand. But the only other thing that I wanted to read out was, so over the course of the whole of 2023, we conceded 58 goals in 52 games in all competitions, which is like 1.1 goals conceded per game. But then so far this calendar year, we've already conceded 56 goals in 34. So we conceded 2 fewer goals at this point on September 30 than we did across the whole of the last calendar year, which is obviously alarming. We have October, November, and December all to come. Yeah, that's a lot of games, and we've
lots of clean sheets.
Yeah, I'm only going off the trend. That is worrying, and that is something that we're going to have to fix. Presumably later on in the show, we'll talk about solutions. So I'm not going to go into it now. But just on Maatsen, and there's obviously going to be questions about the right back stuff, why we didn't sign one and why we signed a left back instead. Again, Villa had to manoeuvre players, and we spoke about it previously, that they had to do deals that suited also the club that they were trading with, essentially. So obviously Kellyman went to Chelsea, and we bought Maatsen. Maatsen's obviously a sensational left back, and will become that as well. Right now, not sensational, but he's obviously got a huge potential. Very young, just playing in the Champions League final. We know all of that. I think he'll be Villa's starting left back for years to come. So that's, I think, a good deal, and for the price, I'm happy with it. But obviously, yeah, ideally that would have been spent on a right back, but then we couldn't make that happen because that player wasn't there to have traded with, essentially, with another club before June 30. So, yeah, that would be the reasoning behind that.
Yeah, okay, all right. Let's move on to another question. Matt B, who said, is the defensive issue a better problem to solve than a goal-scoring one? Is it a case of losing our goal threat to tighten up defensively, or a case of upgrading players in January? I feel like the weakness of the right back / right centre-back is the biggest issue rather than any system tinkering. It's obvious, isn't it? That is the area that is causing us problems. You watch any Villa game, down our right-hand side is where we are vulnerable. But I think the interesting one here is we will talk immensely about right back and right centre back throughout this. So I'm almost not that bothered about that part of the question for this question. I like the bit about fixing up at the back, meaning we don't score as many goals.
Maybe this doesn't answer your question exactly, but I think Kamara coming back is probably the crucial element here. I think he allows us to just have more balance in terms of both phases. At the moment, we've obviously got Onana, who is a work in progress. Sorry, certainly in my opinion, and Emery's opinion as well. He's going through a process, is what Emery said, and we know that he can become a very, very good modern six, essentially. But right now, we are seeing, I think, a bit of vulnerability. This isn't a criticism of him specifically, but I just think him in this system that we're playing, I think we need something a bit more streetwise, maybe. I think a couple of goals that we conceded yesterday, and even during the season, you can see that maybe if that's a Kamara or if that's Onana, maybe in 2 years when he knows exactly what Emery wants of him, maybe those goals don't happen and we're winning matches. So we've won a lot of matches already, but we're not conceding those goals that are, at the end of the season reflects as 2 more points rather than the one that we got. So, yeah, I think Kamara for this is, I don't want to kind of say it's my last hope, but if Kamara comes back and Villa are still conceding chances in big opportunities and goals like they are, then it's clearly a structural problem. But I don't think the structure is necessarily the issue here. Granted, I don't think Emery's really settled on what he wants to do with the right back, the centre back, and that space there, because that is clearly a big issue. I just think if Kamara comes back, can he just slot into that role and we can play the 3 at the back like we did before, where you'd have Torres on the left, Konsa in the middle, Kamara would come back into a back 3. It's what we did at the start of last season. It worked very well. For example, against Brighton, where we won 6-1 at home. You're thinking if it's ever going to work, if it's not going to work, it would be in that game, because they've got a lot of pace on the break, quick wingers, tricky wingers with quality. And we beat them 6-1. And Kamara was in that right-hand space in that back 3. That would be my solution in my head to balance attack with defence, because at the moment we are looking like we're a team that when we have the ball, we forget that if we lose it, we're in trouble. I feel like Onana maybe, and again, he's 22, like he's younger than us, obviously. So he's got a lot to learn still, and he's an incredible talent. And I think he really can become a £100 million player, because he's that good. But the kind of key details, I think, are kind of getting exposed a little bit at the moment, but that's because he's working with a player in Tielemans, who's obviously crucial to our structure as well, a player who's more like for like to Louise. And I just think has a bit to learn in his role, and that is because behind him he has 2 players, one in Konsa, who doesn't really want to be playing at right back, and another in Carlos, who isn't playing well at all. So it's not just Onana's fault.
It looks like he don't want to play centre back.
Yeah, but I'm just saying right now, if you had Kamara in there instead, and I'm not saying this is to displace Onana, maybe he'd play with Kamara, I don't know, let's see. But if Kamara was in there as one of the first names on the team sheet, when he's fully fit, I feel like we'll be seeing less issues, or I hope so anyway, because we've already seen that from last season. I just think the Torres, Konsa, Kamara back 3, I like that. And then you'd have obviously your 2 midfielders, you'd have elsewhere in the team. We have lots of options, so I'm not going to go through it all, but I just hope that's the kind of the silver bullet basically for us. Yeah. If it's not, I feel like it could be a campaign of conceding lots of goals and having to score at the other end, which we're capable of doing. I don't see the kind of argument that, there's pressure on the forwards to score goals. I think Watkins will just continue to score. And I think that's, by the way, that's the big positive from the weekend. He's now scored 3 games in a row, 4 goals in 3 games. Those kind of suggestions about, is he out of, stop. Like we always talk about the start of the season, and then he goes and scores like 10 in 12. So yeah, Kamara for me is the kind of, I'm pinning my hopes on him, really.
It's blown my mind that Amadou Onana is even younger than you. That don't feel right. That shouldn't be allowed.
Is he 22 still?
Well, he's definitely younger than 24, yeah. But in my head, if I saw you in the same room, I'd go, well, he's obviously older than you. Look at him. He's massive.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, you would say that. He's 23, which... it's crazy. He's got years and years to grow, and he knows he's going to do that under Emery, and that's the key thing here. And Emery,
and he wants to learn as well. That's interesting, isn't it? That we've heard from him directly. He wants to take his game to another level, and he will be fully aware of the kind of errors that he's made during games, and will want to fix that and become a better player to help the team. 100%.
Yeah, and these we're kind of. I don't sound like we're picking on him. It's because. And we'll get to it, don't worry, that there's issues going on behind him that expose that, if that makes sense.
And the level is so high, isn't it? We're comparing ourselves to kind of elite standards now.
Yeah, exactly. If you had Kamara in there, I just feel like he'd put out maybe more fires. And Onana was doing that, by the way, in the second half against Ipswich. I love those slide tackles. I remember watching a compilation when he before he joined Villa, and almost everything he did was just a big slide tackle, and I loved it. So he'll be absolutely fine. It's just that right now in these games where defensively we are exposed, you're kind of looking at him and thinking, well, we know that in a few years you might be able to do that, or hopefully you will. But now you want him to be a bit more defensively alert, and do you know what I mean? But I feel like when we go forward, maybe he's thinking, I'm going to continue to wonder, transition, ball around the side, and we're basically done at that point where you want him to kind of maybe take a few yards back. I don't know. That'll come with experience. So yeah, not picking on him, but this is everything that Emery will be saying to him as well, and what he'll be improving on. So yeah, no issues really.
There's another question I wanted to ask you that's not on the list, but it was in our YouTube comments from the post-match show that we did last night, where we spoke about Mings coming back because of the leadership elements and whatnot, and we kind of skirted around but you can't have 2 left-footed centre-backs play together. Like, surely Mings is Powell's understudy rather than they'll play together. The suggestion was, can we do an actual back 3? So Mings in the middle, Konsa right centre-back, Pau Torres left centre-back, Maatsen left wing-back, Cash on the Nedeljkovic right wing-back of an actual back 3, back 5 wing-back system. Could we do that, or does that sacrifice something further forward?
I mean, we can do that, but yeah, you're then changing your system halfway through the year and what we've worked on. I just think what we have now is fine as a structure. The issue is that the personnel fitting into it isn't quite right, but I do think that can be rectified in maybe like a month, because obviously Kamara, maybe a little bit more than a month, because Kamara, hopefully Mings and Kamara are there in the squad for the Fulham game after the international break. That's kind of the earliest they'll be back. Obviously they won't be up to full speed, not at all, and I don't think we can rely on either of them straight away. But I don't think I really want to be chopping and changing a whole structure just to bring Mings into the team. Because again, we don't know where he's at physically. It might take Mings up until, I don't know, the new year potentially, because it's a very, very long injury he's had for us to rely on him. I hope not. I hope it's as fast as possible in November or whatever. But I just think it would be a bit unfair on him for us to say, right, Mings, you're coming in, you're going to be the guy. We're going to basically not build a team around you, but build a team with you in it as a absolutely fundamental piece. And hopefully in the spring that is the case, because we know what a fantastic player he can be and a leader, and we are definitely missing him. But then what does that mean for how we build up, which is absolutely crucial. In most games we're going to have more possession than the opponent, and as we've seen, we need to score 2 goals a game to win, which means Torres is also crucial in how he plays and how he uses the ball. And I know he probably gets kind of let off a little bit defensively. By the way, he made a fantastic block, which probably won us a point in the end. But granted, he wasn't brilliant during the game defensively. I just think, again, you can't take away from his game. I think that's absolutely crucial. And Emery, when he signed him from the start of last season until now, he is still that player who will conduct possession from the back. And we probably take that a little bit for granted because we've seen it for so long now. I don't know for certain, but when those players come back, you'd hope that there's going to be an impact of sorts, whether we go to three at the back and play with wing backs. I don't think that will be the case, but I don't know. I just feel like Unai has a plan here. I know FFP was the reason why we couldn't bring in another right back. Carlos was going, then he wasn't, and he chose to stay. But I just still feel like the Kamara situation, we can't kind of get past the fact that we have one of the better holding midfielders in the league coming back into our squad. Granted, he's had an ACL, but there has to be a level of thinking involved here of he's coming back, we're going to use him in this way, which should help. And I don't know exactly what that looks like, but I'm kind of waiting to see. Again, if it doesn't work then, I'll hold my hands up, I don't know. But that clearly is going to be factored into Unai's thinking in the next few weeks.
Okay, all right. Next question. I'm going to combine two here because they have the similar theme from Lance. I get the whole thing that we tried to sign a right back, but that had to be a priority. Not signing one was a huge error for Monchi, and Emery will be furious for leaving him short in that area. Surely, come January, we will sign one. So, who do you think we'll go after? And Raj says, if we get to January and Villa are still in the top six, do we go for a centre-back / right-back hybrid in the January window to try and stay there for the rest of the season?
No, I don't know right now because financially, as we saw in the summer, we had next to no wiggle room to sign a player in Geertruida whose value in the end wasn't particularly high for the player that he is. So that was a real kind of blow for me, especially after... bringing him into the world. No, not really. Yeah, obviously that was a big frustration. But as I said just then, sorry, I didn't know that question was coming up, but we couldn't move on Carlos, which was key to then bringing Geertruida in. Didn't happen. Whether that's going to happen now in January, whether Carlos moves on and we could do something again, we'll wait and see. But Villa had basically no budget to bring in the player that they wanted in the end because of FFP restrictions. Next summer, as I said previously on a podcast, we'll see what position they're in now because they obviously have Champions League, which is revenue if you win games and so on and so forth. But in January, I'm not expecting them to be spending, well, definitely not spending big, but spending to any sort of level. I'm not sure. We'll have to wait and see. The summer was really difficult. So I can't see us then spending in January on players that are surplus to requirements pretty much elsewhere. You've got to spend big in January if you're going to sign the right players. And yes, we signed Rodgers for a low fee. Whether we can do that again in the defensive positions, again, we'll wait and see. I just think Carlos moving on will probably be key here. I don't know what's happening with Carlos. Have we got any questions on Carlos coming up then?
In a roundabout way, yeah.
Okay.
What would you want to say?
Well, I don't, and this isn't me, this is only me speculating and probably something I shouldn't be doing, but I will. Obviously there was a situation summer where he had an offer, different offers, and he was waiting on the right one. In the end, he didn't accept it and chose to stay. And this is a player who pocketed Haaland at Villa Park. He got 2 man of matches against Arsenal home and away. He was awful against Ipswich, and I'm rating that, by the way. He's clearly a very good player because he's a professional. And he's worked extremely hard to get where he is. I'm absolutely not slagging that off. But my point is that we have to hold these players at the standard of Champions League top 4.
Yeah,
that's the kind of brutal nature of it. And he's come down from that level completely, especially against Ipswich. The amount of times that he was a few yards deeper than the rest of the defensive line, which again is unlike him because he was still a key element of the team who got top 4 last season. And he was in line with the defence. So why is he now dropping so much deeper to play players onside? And why is he getting skinned so easily by Liam Delap? But it was really, really poor. And again, me saying this, I'm pretty sure most people are saying it, but Carlos will probably know this himself. But I'm kind of thinking, because he could have left in the summer, sorry, I'm not trying to question his. Do you know I'm trying to go with this? I just
100%. Yeah.
Is he as motivated right now to be playing for Aston Villa as he was maybe 12 months ago? That's the kind of point I'm trying to raise here, because although he wasn't perfect last season, he was never, dropping down 4 or 5 yards to play players on the side in the same game. And yes, he wasn't completely awful. He made a few good tackles and then won the ball back a couple of times. But you were not going to kind of credit that as good performance, are we? Because
No.
again, we're judging these players at the top level now, and he dipped so far below those standards. Konsa had a dreadful game as well, one of the worst he's played for Villa, I think. But again, not helped because he's playing in that space where you've got Carlos playing players on the side and not stepping up and struggling. Like, it was a real, it's pretty desperate. So I don't know what's going to happen with January with Carlos, but put it this way, I wouldn't be surprised if there was a situation where he left. And that is difficult to think about right now because we have a lot of games to play until then. And I'm just hoping that Carlos is absolutely kind of committed with it and is, mentally fine as well. Because we don't know what's going on in a player's life, that, maybe he was close to a move and he was kind of set on it and it didn't happen. And now for different reasons, because again, players have families, he's Brazilian and he's living in Birmingham. That can't be ideal, in some aspects as well. So I'm not going to kind of make out that he's, I don't know. I'm not trying to suggest anything sinister, but I just feel like we need kind of full commitment here. And I'm just thinking, I want to see a bit more from him in the coming weeks, basically. And if he is going to continue to have these poor performances, then I probably will kind of associate the whole summer saga with him to, what is he really in it? Because the performance, we know that he's much better than that. And he really did dip below his standards. So, yeah, I'm hoping that he's all good and that he can, kind of get back up to the level that we expect of him because we need it. Essentially, we're counting on him.
Yeah, it was far too easy to play against him for Ipswich on Sunday. It was like the level was just nowhere near that Villa need, and kind of puts Konsa at detriment as well because he's playing a position that he doesn't really want to be playing. So you've kind of ruined two positions by Carlos being in the squad. But we need him because we don't have cash or we don't have a right back that Emery thinks he can rely on. So we're in a bit of a pickle, really. For Carlos, it all starts from kind of the season disaster class so far with a stupid red card in pre-season, disrupting the flow of you getting ready for a new season and just...
Yeah, this is my point. I'm sitting there thinking as well, Emery said at the start of the season when the window was still open, which he doesn't like, by the way, and I think that's now changing next year. But he was saying we don't, there's some players who don't know about the future still, and Carlos was clearly one of them, and he wasn't playing, and Bogard was playing instead. But now the window's finished, Carlos comes back into the team, Konsa goes right back, like last season, which Emery said he didn't really want to be doing. It's all kind of muddled a little bit for me, and I kind of put it down to uncertainty over Carlos's future in the summer. As you say, then getting a red card against Leipzig, you can't be focused if that's happening. You just can't be. He obviously then dropped out of the Wickham squad as well through a bit of discomfort, whatever that was. I don't know.
Was that just I can't be asked?
No, we can't suggest that because that's,
but what, he's injured on Tuesday, but then he's all right for the weekend.
Well, yeah, he may have overcome his injury, but of course it would lead to that kind of speculation of, you were only on the bench. Could you not have just sat through it, sort of thing? I don't know. I'm not suggesting, and we're not suggesting that he's not kind of bothered. That isn't the point. But
sticking us out of a legal hole.
Yeah, I am. But it's these are all things that fans especially will be thinking about. He's had a disruptive pre-season. He could have left. Now he's not putting in good performances to the point where it looks like, what is going on here? Like, you were playing a key role because Villa did play the back four with Konsa right back, Carlos centre back for a lot of the games last season, and we had a fantastic season. So he did well, and we know that he can play at a level. A lot of people say, "Oh, he's not good enough." I disagree with that. I think he can be good enough, but on the showing against Ipswich and what we've seen over the last few games and the kind of disruption and the kind of uncertainty, it all kind of folds into one thing of not sure. To the point of, if we played a game we played Bayern Munich, you're probably just going to drop him for a youngster in Bogard or Nedeljkovic, because I'm struggling to see if he's ready, like mentally, physically, probably okay. I don't know, because Wickham, he said he was in discomfort, but is he ready to really commit right now? I don't know. That's kind of up to Emery to firstly work out, but also get out of him, because as I said, we've got many games to play until January. If he does go in January, then okay, but this can't be the detriment of half the season. Do you know what I mean? So we really do need him to step up now and kind of prove himself to us, because he did it last year, great, but now we need a bit more because right now we are kind of questioning, is he all there? Because some of the errors that he made against Ipswich and in previous games, like getting a red card against Leipzig in pre-season, it's just, that doesn't happen, I think, if Carlos is completely with it and completely motivated and committed. So, yeah.
Next question, Paul says, Konsa right back, defensively all good, but going forward, not up to it, unless an easy pass, struggles with the ball going forward and wants to turn back. He's not a right back, and we need him in central defence. Do you think it's a problem not having Cash? And it's funny, isn't it, how football works in cycles, that Matty Cash is the problem at one stage, and now here we are, 6 games into the season saying, oh, bring him back, we need him. That is our best option at the moment. If you're picking the team for Wednesday and Matty Cash says, right, I'm 100%, I'm fit to play, Cash plays right back and Konsa goes in the middle. That's our best defence now.
Yeah, I agree with that. And kind of what I raised earlier, I think the back three when we're on the ball is the way to go. And I know Cash has done that as well. But when Kamara comes back, I expect us to be going back into that shape of Torres, Konsa, and Kamara. Mings will obviously be back again, as I said, when he's fully fit, not too sure, but when he is, that leaves another question of, well, can we do something else here? Emery has said, can we do 4 centre-backs? To me, I'm not sure, because then what do we do with the left-back situation? That means Carlos plays, which means that Konsa's at right-back. I want Konsa and Torres as the main two. I think we've seen that, I would, to be fair to myself, I was calling before the Wolves game to bring Carlos back, because we need to, if we're judging him off last season, which Emery said in his presser after the Ipswich game, it would be unfair to kind of forget what happened last season. But based on the evidence we have so far, Carlos isn't with it as such. And whether he will be in the next weeks, then if he is, then great. If he's not, then clearly we have an issue. So, yeah, Konsa centre-back with Torres, I think, is the kind of way to build from, essentially. Yeah. And then you're right back. Bogard hasn't been sensational by any stretch of the imagination. He's got a lot to learn. But that seems safer at the moment than the kind of space that we're playing in when you've got Carlos and Konsa, again, who doesn't really want to be playing there. And players are going to utilise that weakness, essentially. That is a massive limitation of ours at the moment. Hopefully, as I say, it'll be fixed when Kamara comes back and we can kind of juggle things there. But up until then, up until he's back fully fit, then we have got a problem.
We spoke about the Emi Martinez free pass on the last Q&A, I think. James is asking about a Pau Torres free pass. He says, as he's a ball player and he carries it well, are we guilty of giving Pau a free pass? Cash and Carlos are often criticised for their defensive frailties, and I don't like scapegoating players, but he lacks pace and offers no aerial protection. His skill set would work best in a 3.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. As I said, he made a very good block in the closing kind of minutes against Ipswich, but apart from that, he was looking vulnerable. However, I think when you've got a player whose ability is so immense on the ball, considering his position, I think he kind of can give him that free pass, because what are we saying that, Torres isn't as good as defender as what we need? Take him out and do what? Like, there really isn't another option here. So yes, free pass, because what's the solution? And again, Torres, for me, would be playing in every 11 that we have, because we can't get a better left-sided centre-back to do what he's doing, period. I just don't believe that. I think Mings is very good with the ball, but again, we don't know what condition, what shape he's going to be in when he really does return. And again, can they play together? We'll find out. Mings can play in some matches, and I think we'll be more defensively secure. But again, this is up to Emery. Emery signed Torres for a reason before Mings was injured, so he clearly had a plan for both of them. That's what I would be saying. But yeah, he does probably get a free pass defensively, Torres. But I think that's because you have to balance it up with, he gives us an awful lot in the other part of his game. If he didn't do that, then of course I think we'd be waiting for the return of Mings and would be questioning the signing of Torres. But yeah, you won't get that from me. I think he's a fantastic player and key to what we're doing.
He's doing the job that he's being asked to do. He's not being there to run in behind and track a defender, track a forward and win everything in the air. He's there to help us build from the back and play out, and he does that very well. Like, he's doing the job he's being asked to do.
Yeah, bang on. And just on Martinez as well. Again, I think he probably should have done better for both goals.
Yeah, agreed.
Against Ipswich, especially the first one, he had a good starting position, but then let it go at his near post. And for the second one, he left an awful lot of space for Delap to score. So he'll be disappointed with his performance as well against Ipswich, I think.
Yeah, it's like we said before, we're judging the players now and the staff as well against a higher standard. This isn't just like, okay, well, it is what it is. Finished 10th, yeah, cool, happy days. It's better than what it used to be. It's like, no, we need to be 10 out of 10 pretty much every week to stand a chance of getting in the top 4. And at the moment, yes, we've got, 5 wins or whatever, 4 wins, can't remember. But it's not, even some of the wins aren't, you know what I mean? Like, we're not blowing teams away. Like, we're not unbelievable. We're just kind of getting over the line. Whereas if we want to do it consistently, we have to start being a bit more ruthless.
Yeah, and there'll be probably a lot of fans listening to this, probably thinking, "Oh, for God's, where are we? 5th in the Champions League. Be positive. But we're doing what Emery will be doing. Essentially, we are judging the players on trying to better 4th from last year. Torres said it himself a couple of days ago. We think we can finish higher than 4th. We think we can.
And I agree with that, by the way. I genuinely agree with that. I think they can, but at the moment, what we saw specifically on Sunday, we won't.
Yeah, exactly. We can't be sitting here saying, "Yeah, but you know what? It's a draw against a team we might have lost again 4 years ago." We can't be doing that. We have to be judging it against the highest levels. So it might come across as, or it probably does come across as negative, but that's because we didn't beat a newly promoted team, which we need to be doing to maintaining, or more often than not, at least, to be maintaining 4th as we've been under Emery, because that's the club we are now. We are the 4th best team in England for the last 2 years or something. So we have to judge the players on that level, and so will they be doing that as well.
Carlos specifically, I know we've spoken a lot about him, but he is now the weak link in that defence. He would not be playing for Liverpool or Arsenal or Man City or some of the other teams in the Champions League. He's not the level.
Well, right now, and as we said last season, he was, because he played a role in that. So that we're judging him
to get us there, but now we're judging him on this part of the season now, and he's not doing what he needs to.
Yeah, and we're doing that because we know that last year he played at a level that helped us get top 4. If he didn't, I don't think we'd be analysing it. We'd just be saying, well, we know that he'll be displaced at some point, but instead we're giving him the kind of, dare I say, giving him the credit, which doesn't sound like we are, but we're giving him the credit to say, this is your level and you're now playing here. You need to be getting back up there to help us, that sort of thing. And this is, again, everything that will be said in the dressing room. So we're just bringing that here.
Jonathan says, with all the cards this weekend in the Premier League, does a player or a club get fined when they receive a yellow/red card? Thanks, love the show. Old-fashioned fines in the dressing room, if handed round at the start of the season, would be what, £100 for a yellow card or something? I don't know. What's the standard these days for what the players get paid? 500 grand for a red card.
Yeah, weekly wage. I don't know, to be perfectly honest. I don't think a yellow card fine would be anything that's, because that happens most weeks. What I would say is that you get fined as a club, I think, if you get at least 6 yellow cards in a game, I think.
So not controlling your players or something.
Yeah, something like that. And by the way, I don't think we have many yellow cards at this point in the season, which is obviously a big positive. I think I checked this before Ipswich, or was it after? I'm pretty sure it was before, and I think Onana on 2 was the most we had. That may have changed, obviously, now. Did Onana get booked? I don't think he did. So 2 would still be the maximum, if I'm correct there, which is good, because there are some clubs who are already having players on 4 yellow cards, and you hate that feeling of, he's walking the tightrope. Like, do you remember last year when Luis was walking it for about 8 games and then he got booked against Bournemouth, was it? No, Brentford. I can't remember, but he missed Brentford. I'm pretty certain, because then he missed was it West Ham and Arsenal or something? Can't remember, but
definitely missed Arsenal. I can't remember the other.
Maybe it was Wolves or something. I'm not sure, but that was like we're going to lose the game now. And it's weird, because whenever players do get suspensions, it always feels like, unless it's like your key striker or goalkeeper, it always feels like you just make up for it, and it doesn't really matter in the end. Like I forgot who it was the other week. He had like a suspension and injury, and they won the game, and it was like, okay. So yeah, like Fernandes, for example, at the moment is out of the Villa game, but I'm like, okay, like maybe it might have even helped Villa if he was playing, because it would give us a bit, not in like the way of he's a bad player, more in, it gives the crowd a bit more to kind of bite about. That may get rescinded anyway. But to answer the question, I don't know what the kind of fines are in the dressing room for different things. No idea.
And to answer your question, Onana didn't get booked, but Luca Dean did just before half time.
Maybe.
David says, we clearly lack leaders on the pitch. When a player makes a mistake, everyone just high fives him. What happened to a good old which I quite like. That does wind me up a little bit, the kind of like clapping a mistake from a manager or the teammates. Like, yeah, it doesn't matter. Like, come on, keep going. It's like sometimes you do need a bit of needle and a bit of, come on, what the f is that?
You saying it's woke?
No. What the woke nonsense.
Very up to date. I think I don't have much to say about this, to be honest with you. The players, I did ask Emery actually about obviously McGinn missing a few, and this would happen when McGinn was there or not, I presume. But I did ask him about the leaders in the squad without McGinn, or in McGinn's absence. You happy with the kind of the leaders on the pitch? And he was like, yeah, like fine, like it's no problem. So he was pretty emphatic with that, Emery. Martinez is obviously the leader from the back, and then you've got more experienced players through the pitch. But I get the kind of sentiment of, you know, if you're going to make mistakes, probably not best to kind of reward them and say, "Oh, it's everything's going to be okay." You probably want to shout at them, but these are professional footballers, so I'm not going to give any advice. I think
I would say there's probably some sports psychology to this. That there's probably that's like the best solution is to kind of cajole your teammates and put an arm around the shoulder rather than having a go. But I get the kind of sentiment that sometimes if you've seen a mistake, you want to have your anger frustrated. You know, you want to see Mings and El Ghazi, don't you, going at each other? That's what you want to see.
You might want to see that. Yeah, I get that. I think if players make mistakes, they know that there's also 40,000 people in the stadium that are going to be shouting at them, and then another 20,000 on Twitter giving them abuse. Like, there's not much point in a player shouting at him. I think he'll know. So yeah, but I get the point of you know, you want a bit of kind of blood and thunder, blood and guts kind of thing, but it's probably not going to work in 2024. Nearly 2025, by the way. What is going on?
Adrian saying, we expect our first baby in 9 days, or probably 7 or 8 days now. Knowing I have to drive 2 hours back to South Wales if I get the call.
Born in 2025. I know that sounds stupid, but they'll be what, 10 years old in 2034 actually, if it's born in 9 days. Like you see,
humans are going to keep being born as time progresses. John.
No, I know, but I'm trying to get to the point of, like, you know, when you see the players born in 2012.
Oh,
what the hell? Like,
I left school in 2012.
The world was supposed to end in 2012, wasn't it?
Yeah, that never happened.
So they missed that, or maybe they were born for it, but they wouldn't remember it. Like, that's their. No, I can't say
I think the football thing of that is worse. Like when you see players born in 2011, so like you don't even remember the South Africa World Cup.
Oh, yeah. Oh my God.
There'll be equivalencies for us, for an older generation. Like, you don't remember Italia 90? Like, there'll always be something.
So how old are they? When was the South Africa World Cup? 2010.
2010.
Right. So how old? So they're 14 now. So they're in.
Yeah.
Year 7 and year 8, year 9, or I don't know what year it is. They don't remember South Africa 2010.
Oh, well, they'd have been born that year. They wouldn't even remember the 2014 World Cup, wherever that was. I forgot. Was that Russia? Brazil, of course. No. Yes, Brazil. Wow, yeah.
So they didn't see the Germany like 8-0 or 8-1 or whatever. 7-1. Oh my God. That stunned me to silence. So their first World Cup was like Eric Dyer scoring. It was probably Eric Dyer scoring in Russia.
Yeah.
Oh,
you'd only be like 8.
Yeah, but that's usually your first World Cup when you're around 8.
Yeah, that's true. 10. It's probably about right. Yeah.
Because South Africa, I was 10 when that happened, and I remember that as like my first World Cup. I'm putting that in my group chat. That is incredible.
Can I even finish the question that I was doing before we finish the rest of the podcast?
Yeah, baby's born in 9 days. Go on.
Yeah, so baby born in 9 days. Now I have to drive 2 hours back to South Wales if I get the call. Is it too risky for me to go to Bayern Munich?
Get your priorities right, mate. God. You're in a better space to answer this than me. I don't know what
would you do?
He's born in 9 days, did you say?
Yeah, so the due date is probably the start of next week, I would say. I think you'd go, to be honest.
Well, I'm not very clued up with this stuff, but hasn't he got like a few days to spare? or unless he's walking to Wales.
Babies can come early, obviously. You can have a due
Yeah.
date, but they can
Is
come
that
early. So
likely?
I don't know. It's random, isn't it? Ours didn't come early.
Can't you go to the Bayern game and then if you get the call, leave the Bayern game?
Well, I think that's what I would do. It's only a 2 hour. I say only a 2 hour drive. It's still 2 hours. But I think if you get the call to say I've gone into labour, it's very unlikely they'll be born within that next 2 hours. I would say, from a personal point of view, anyway.
My point would be is if you've got to drive after you get that phone call, you can't kind of make your way there progressively. You're gonna have to just do it when it happens. So you may as well go to Bayern. If it happens now, you've got to go now. If it happens in 4 days, you go then. Like you're not kind of making your way there. If you know it's a 2 hour window when you get that phone call. If it's half time in Bayern, then that's unlucky or lucky. Yeah. And then you kind of crack on. So I'd say go to Bayern.
I'd say go to Bayern, and I think the call won't even come. And you'll think, oh, I'm glad I just went to that and got it out of the way. If you get the call, put your foot down. You'll be home within an hour and a half.
Depends if it's queuing for the toilet at half time.
Right.
Add 15 minutes onto your journey.
Another final football question from Dr. AVFC says, what is our approach against Bayern Munich? Do we go for it and play our own game, or do we take a more pragmatic approach? Example, Arsenal at home last season. The way we've been defensively, I'm doubtful we can even hold them to 1 or 2 goals. Is this the game we finally get a clean sheet?
I don't think so. I would just go for it. We've qualified for the Champions League, and I think because we play another 6 games after this and we've already won the first one, genuinely, Dan, I'm going to this game just to enjoy it, or hopefully enjoy it. But if we lose the game 3-0, and I'm not saying we will, but I'm just giving kind of the worst case scenario.
Is that the worst case scenario?
No, as in if we lose by a heavy scoreline, I'm not saying we will, but if we do, yeah, unlucky kind of thing.
That's
I'm just going there to
my
enjoy
approach to it.
Yeah, this is why I prefer the Champions League phase structure than the group stage, because Newcastle, I know they beat PSG 4-1 at home, but each one of their games was like by the way, we kind of need to win this game or avoid defeat and then win the next one. But for us, it's like we have Club Brugge, Bologna, obviously favourable draws, granted, but even if we we do have Juventus at home and other tricky matches, AS Monaco away, so we have a mixture, but we have enough games to spread out our wins, essentially, that if we don't beat Bayern, or if we lose to them, then okay, it is what it is. Hopefully we put in a good performance, something that can kind of, I want to see us hopefully get a couple of goals if we can, obviously. But, like kind of enjoy the moment and hopefully celebrate a goal or two. And if we lose the game 3-2, all right, we've had a good night enjoying watching Villa play one of the biggest clubs in the world. That's what we want. And hopefully that will happen. I was trying to flick my leg up there. Hopefully that will continue to happen as the years go on. So, yeah, I don't know if you remember I said start of this season, like I just want to enjoy this season. That's kind of gone out the window. I'm like fully invested in us getting 4th now, but this is the kind of game I meant. Like I'm just going to enjoy this one because the result won't, I don't think, have a major impact. Like if we lose, okay, if we win, that will have a big impact even. But losing the match isn't going to So
I felt exactly the same after we did the post-match show yesterday with Frankie. We had a chat off air, but during that episode, it was kind of like nitpick here, this. There's things to be annoyed about. I'm trying to get into that mindset of coming on and doing the podcast on Wednesday evening when I get back. If we've lost 4-0, I don't think I'm going to be like, well, Diego Carlos did this and blah, blah, blah. It's just what it is. Like we're playing at the highest level against one of the best clubs in the world, like you say. I'm not just going to go, oh, well, happy to lose, because that's not what I'm saying. But I don't think I'll be like, I don't think I'll be as angry if we lose theirs, if we lose to anybody else in the Premier League, because it's just different.
That was my kind of sentiment before the Ipswich game when I said, would Emery rather beat Ipswich than Bayern? That's the kind of point I meant of like, that was probably more important point-wise than Bayern is point-wise, So, yeah, by the way, we're not saying we're going to lose 4-0. I think it will be a close game. I think we'll give them
it'll be at least 6.
Damn. But we're just trying to paint the picture of, result isn't the be all end all here. It's just to enjoy your night. The players work so hard, not us. And well, to be fair, fans have spent a lot of money to get to where we are now. Lots of games, and here we are. So just enjoy it. if you can.
Yeah, this is the culmination of a lot of crap years. We've all kind of dreamed about being in the Champions League, and we're finally there. If we happen to lose the first game at home, it's like, kind of, yeah, so be it. And if we get anything else, like, how amazing will that be? Even if we get a draw, our standards are so like we're expecting nothing.
Yeah,
anything that we do is a bonus.
Yeah, if we win the game, it will be worth half the cost of the tickets.
All right. Silly question time. Okie dokie. Classic. Sally says, would you rather fight one elephant-sized rat?
Whatever the second answer is, whatever the second answer.
Well, you must know what the second option is based off the format of the question.
I mean, it would. I don't even know. I presume I know what the second question is, but it would be that anyway.
Or
rat-sized elephant.
100 rat-sized elephants.
It's
always the small option for me, regardless of the quantity.
Yeah, they're cunning little devils. Probably like form a tall one. Do you know what I mean? Like they wouldn't all just be on the floor. They'd attack you in a way that was. Do you know what I mean?
Calculated.
Yeah, I think so. Aren't they quite intelligent rats? Oh, I don't know what I'm talking about.
No, but they're not rats though, are they? They're elephants. They're just rat-sized.
Great point.
Although elephants are pretty clever, I think.
Great point. Yeah, great point. Oh, yeah, that's a fantastic point. Yeah, I would take on the 100. 100, because the elephants, they'd be so confused. Elephants don't climb on each other, do they? They're not going to think, oh, let's form as I said, which would be stupid anyway, because you just run through it. But you get my point. They would just be like, what is going on? They'd be completely confused because I'm now huge, which no one's ever said ever, even humans. So yeah, I'd take them on for sure. They'd have no plan. They'd have no strategy, would they? Because the elephants are intelligent, yes, but not in that situation. They'd be confused.
Why am I so small? The elephant would be thinking.
Yes,
what's
exactly.
happened?
Yeah. But also they have no strategy, whereas rats understand that and they think we're going to have to work together to take this man down. Do you know what I mean? Whereas the elephants will just be like, what do we do here?
I appreciate the logic that has gone into that, and I agree. It's always the small-sized thing for me, even regardless of the quantity, because it's easier
that would be a good
away or whatever.
If someone could think of like the counter of that, like what would actually be harder to defeat in a small version, that would be interesting.
Yeah, Christ. All right, let's move on to comment of the week from Jim Uncully, who said, in a few years, if Emery moves on and we haven't won a trophy, whilst I've enjoyed our good form, I would consider it a failure. Ultimately, I want to see us win something, and I'm pretty sure that Emery feels this way too. So
just comment of the week.
Conversation last week, after the Q&A last week about how do we kind of define success for the Emery era, whether we build him a trophy and all that kind of stuff. And it is silverware, isn't it, for most people? Why I brought this comment up, that's what people will help define by an era of success. That they need something tangible.
I certainly wouldn't be calling it failure because we have to get in this position in the first place. I understand what you're saying because now we're at this level. We now need to kind of mark it. So for me, it's already been a success because we're the fourth best team in England. And granted, when he leaves,
does some of it not get like skewed by how you feel during the time? Like the last 2 years have generally been very good for Villa. Like, can you call like the feelings that you've had a failure just because it doesn't end with a piece of a trophy?
It's been the best 2 years of supporting Villa that many fans have had for decades. So it's it's been like a wild success, but it's been a miracle, as Damien likes to say, because as we said before, almost impossible to break up that big six because of PSR. So you have to have something else, which is usually a world-class manager, which is luckily what we have. But yeah, I agree that if we don't win a trophy in his tenure, that will be looked back upon as a I don't want to say
opportunity missed.
Yeah, it's not a regret, but it's an opportunity missed. Yeah, you're right. That would be the case. It wouldn't be failure as such, unless you want to kind of mark it as after Unai's first 2 years in charge, we didn't win a trophy, and that was failure. I guess that makes more sense. But to call it as the tenure, I think we're probably just being a bit kind of nitpicky here. I think the question he meant now knowing what we know, it's now failure if we don't win a trophy from here on. And that I think I would agree with.
Yeah. Okay, and that is the end of our weekly Q&A. John, thank you very much for joining me and answering the questions as always. We'll be back tomorrow with a interview with Darren Fletcher from TNT Sports. Matt Kendrick has done that one, and trust me, it's absolutely worth half an hour of your time. And then I'll be back with Kendrick on Wednesday evening for the post-match reaction for Bayern Munich. No matter what the scoreline, let's see if I'm still standing by my mantra of, whatever happens, happens on Wednesday night. Thank you for watching or listening to this episode of Claret and Blue, and we'll see you Tuesday.